Who is Sadie Sink playing in Spider-Man Brand New Day? Jean Grey and Sara Grey explained here. Warning, spoiler warning. If you've just watched Spider-Man Brand New Day, one thing becomes crystal clear. This isn't just another Spider-Man movie. It's also the beginning of the X-Men era in the MCU. And surprisingly, the entire story revolves around someone we've never seen before on the big screen, Sara Grey. At first, it looks like Jean Grey is simply another powerful mutant causing chaos across New York. But as the movie unfolds, we learn that everything she's doing is driven by one goal: finding her older sister. By the end of the film, Sara Grey turns out to be the emotional heart of the entire story. So, who is Sara Grey? Why is Jean desperately searching for her? What is VMAX, and how does Spider-Man become part of this heartbreaking journey? Let's break it all down. Jean and Sara's tragic childhood. Through several emotional flashbacks, the movie slowly pieces together Jean's past. Jean and her older sister, Sara Grey, never had a normal childhood. The sisters never grew up with their biological parents. Instead, they spent years moving from one foster home to another. Eventually, they were adopted by a woman who finally gave them a place to call home. For the first time, life felt normal. But everything changed when their mutant powers began to manifest. Unlike Spider-Man, whose powers came from a radioactive spider bite, Jean and Sara were born mutants. Both sisters possessed psychic abilities. Sara's powers awakened first. She could project her consciousness into another person's mind and communicate telepathically over short distances. Jean soon began developing the same gifts. Instead of accepting them, their adoptive mother abandoned them. Once again, the sisters were left completely alone. Sara protects Jean. With no one else to rely on, Sara became far more than an older sister. She became Jean's teacher, her protector, and the only person who truly understood what she was becoming. She taught Jean how to control her powers, how to quiet the voices inside her mind, and how to survive in a world terrified of mutants. But their lives changed forever when the Department of Damage Control discovered them. Knowing both sisters would be captured, Sara made the ultimate sacrifice. Using her psychic abilities, she forced Jean to escape while she stayed behind. Jean watched helplessly as her sister was taken away. That was the last time she ever saw Sara. Why Jean comes to New York? Years later, Jean receives one final psychic message from Sara. A single mysterious word echoes through her mind: VMAX. Jean believes it's a clue, perhaps a location, perhaps a secret project, perhaps the place where Sara is still being held. Following that psychic message eventually leads her to New York. Jean isn't looking for Spider-Man. She isn't trying to become a villain. She's searching every Department of Damage Control facility she can find. Spider-Man stands in her way meanwhile. Peter Parker continues protecting New York. As several damage control facilities come under attack, Spider-Man naturally believes Jean is responsible. The Department of Damage Control tells Peter she's an extremely dangerous mutant. Peter believes he's protecting innocent people. Jean believes Spider-Man is protecting the people who kidnapped her sister. Neither one truly understands the other, which makes their conflict far more emotional than a typical superhero fight. Jean enters Spider-Man's mind. One of the movie's most emotional scenes happens during their confrontation. Jean finally uses her telepathy on Spider-Man. She wants to know why he refuses to let her continue searching. The moment she enters Peter's mind, everything changes. She doesn't see an enemy. She sees grief. She witnesses Aunt May's death. She experiences the loneliness Peter has lived with ever since Dr. Strange's spell erased Peter Parker from everyone's memories. She sees MJ standing only a few feet away, completely unable to remember the person she once loved. She sees Ned living a happy life without remembering his best friend. For the first time, Jean realizes Spider-Man isn't trying to stop her because he works for damage control. He's trying to stop another person from being consumed by loss. Peter understands exactly what she's feeling, because in many ways, he's already lived it. The truth about Sara Grey. Eventually, Jean allows herself to be captured, believing it will finally lead her to Sara. Instead, she discovers the heartbreaking truth. The Department of Damage Control had been experimenting on Sara for years. Their goal was to replicate mutant psychic abilities and turn them into weapons. Jean searches desperately for the mysterious V-Max. Then she notices something heartbreaking, an air conditioning vent above her cell. The label reads VentMax, but part of the word has peeled away, leaving only V-Max. Jean finally realizes the truth. That wasn't a secret location. It wasn't a weapon. It was simply the last thing Sara saw before she died. The final psychic message her sister sent wasn't giving directions. It was her final memory, her final goodbye. Jean's powers fully awaken. The realization completely shatters Jean. Years of grief, years of hope, years of searching disappear in a single moment. Combined with the experiments being performed on her, Jean's mutant abilities evolve dramatically. Her telepathy becomes stronger than ever. Her telekinesis reaches an entirely new level. For the first time, she begins resembling the incredibly powerful Jean Grey comic fans have known for decades. Spider-Man saves Jean. Peter knows he can't stop Jean with brute force, so instead, he reaches her emotionally. He tells her something only someone who's experienced unimaginable loss could understand. He explains that every day he walks through New York surrounded by people who once loved him. Yet none of them remember who he is. He couldn't save Aunt May. He lost MJ. He lost Ned. And despite all of that, he still chooses to protect the city. Peter reminds Jean that Sara sacrificed herself so her little sister could survive. Not so she could spend the rest of her life chasing revenge, but so she could keep living. Those words finally reach Jean. For the first time since losing Sara, she lets go of her anger. Not her memories, not her love for her sister, just the hatred that had been consuming her. What this means for the MCU. By the end of Spider-Man Brand New Day, Jean Grey isn't simply introduced as another powerful mutant. She's introduced as someone whose greatest strength and greatest weakness is her humanity. The movie uses Sara Grey's story to give Jean one of the most emotional introductions we've ever seen in the MCU. And with Jean now embracing her true potential, Spider-Man Brand New Day doesn't just end with Peter Parker saving New York. It quietly opens the door to the next chapter of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the arrival of the X-Men. Final thoughts. Sara Grey may only appear briefly, but her impact is felt throughout the entire movie. Her sacrifice shapes Jean's journey, her final psychic message becomes the film's biggest twist, and her memory transforms Jean from a grieving sister into one of the MCU's most powerful mutants. In the end, Spider-Man Brand New Day isn't just a Spider-Man story. It's the emotional beginning of Marvel's X-Men era.